Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar training on how to get started with baby. A number of you are asking about if I can hear you or if you're muted. Just to let you know that all attendees are muted. Only I have control to allow you to speak. Hopefully you can all hear me though. This webinar is being recorded and it can be played back as many times as you need in the future. Use the chat feature to ask any questions, but due to the content and the amount of time that we have, this 45 minutes to an hour, please save your your questions to the very end, and I'll be able to answer as many as you can. If you still have questions after this, there is a portion on here where you can on how you can contact product support to ask your questions of anything that hasn't been covered today or any questions you might still have. So going on, again, welcome to Getting Started with RealCare Baby. My name is Nate Schlieve. I'm a product support technician and I have been with the company for 20 years, so I have certainly seen a lot of babies and with the growing company that we have had. And so our agenda today is we are going to go over, do I have everything I need to use a baby? How do I set up my baby and control center? How do I use my baby in the control center? Common operating questions, and how to contact product support. There are different ways on how to contact us instead of just phone calls or by email. So first of all, we're going to kind of cover over the things that you would have, what you need to run your babies, or if you had just recently purchased, what items you probably would have received. So first, we're going to take a look at the baby itself. If you have a baby, take it, have it in your hands so you can just kind of see what I'm going to be talking about. But the baby, it comes dressed in a two-piece outfit, pink for female, blue for male. The babies are anatomically correct, male and female. They weigh roughly around 8.5 pounds, and they are roughly around 21 to 22 inches long. They do smell a little bit like baby powder, and they come in 5 different skin tones. Now in each supply and accessory for the babies, you get the two-piece outfit, again, the blue or the pink, depending upon the gender. It comes with a sleeper, a bodysuit, 5 wristbands, a set of diapers. You have 1 green patch and 1 yellow patch diaper, a bottle, and an ID. Now the clothing, all of the clothing, they are machine washable, and best thing to wash them, cold, gentle cycle, line dry is best, otherwise tumble dry, low, or on air fluff. The wristbands, they're a one and done kind of use. They slip through, if you have an ID, they slip through the little slits on the ID, just go on one side underneath and up through the other. And then you can attach that to the student's wrist. Have about a finger width between the wristband and the student's wrist, so that way it's not too tight around their wrist to where it's cutting off circulation, and that they can't slip it off. The IDs have 5-digit number embossed to them, which you would program at the time of programming. We'll do that in later on in this presentation as well. The bottles, they have a magnetic tip at the very top of the bottle, a magnet, and in the baby's lips, there is a magnetic sensor. So when the baby has a feeding, you take off the bottle cap, put the bottle to the lips, baby recognizes the magnet, and it will simulate a sucking sound. If you're ever curious about the bottle, if it is functioning, again, it is just a magnet at the tip of the bottle. If you can pick up a metal paper clip with the tip of the bottle, your bottle is just fine. It is a rubber, not latex nipple. If it were to flake off or anything, were to chip off, but as long as you can still see that magnet, and if that magnet can still pick up the tip of the paper clip with the tip of the bottle, your bottle is just fine. The wristbands, as well, as I will mention, also are latex free, so is the baby. And there's no medical concerns if you're ever wondering if any of the baby and the materials do come with any latex. Now, the optional bundle that you might have purchased would be the outerwear, the diaper bag, a blanket, car seat infant carrier with car seat detection kit. with the car seat detection kit, it will record how long the baby has been in the car seat as opposed to being in the baby's arms. I will also mention that the articles of clothing that came with the baby have sensors sewn into them so that they will record the different times the baby was wearing clothing throughout the simulation. We will cover that when we go over how to interpret the report later in this presentation. Now, the other items that you would have with this order, or maybe you may have inherited a program and have some different chargers or different communication devices. But if this was a recent purchase, you would have received an X-Stick wireless communication adapter. If you have one X-Stick, that will work with an unlimited number of babies. The X-Stick, I will mention that even though it looks like a memory stick, it does not contain any software. It is just a communication device. Its sole purpose is to send data from the computer into the baby and then retrieve the data from the baby and put it in the computer. For the X-Stick to function, you will need to download the control center from our website, which will be covered in previous slides, in upcoming slides. So again, the X-Stick is just a communication device. It just sends data. It does not have software. So in order for that to function and for your computer to recognize the device, you have to install the control center first. Then you would have a single charger, or if you have multiple babies, like in 5 or more, you would have had a 5-baby multi-splitter. And in your order, you would also have received an instructor key. The instructor key, the primary purpose of the instructor key is just to take off the baby's battery cover. You would only receive one key, and that will open up every single RealCare Baby that is in existence. So it is a universal key, and again, its only purpose is to really take off the baby's battery cover. Have that key handy if you ever have to contact product support, because many times we will need you to take off the battery cover. Now, in your materials, in your order, you would have received a quick start guide. And on the very first page at the bottom of the quick start guide is your link to your RealCare downloads. On this RealCare downloads, you would find your control center software where you can install the control center for both Windows and Mac from that link. You'll also have your curriculum. There's the participant care video, participant care cards if you needed to print more, and additional downloadable materials. This also can be accessed right from, you can find this later on if you want to watch the PowerPoint, or you can always contact product support and say, can I please get the link to the curriculum and the control center software? So next, we want to go over how to set up your RealCare Baby and the control center software. First thing, oops, went a little faster. First thing we want to do is kind of get familiar with the back of the baby and what you see on there. If you have a baby with you, go ahead and just slide face down and lift up the shirt. So at the top of the battery cover, there is a recessed button. Now the recessed button has two purposes. The first one is to add the baby to the control center. And the other purpose is that it can be used as a method to turn the baby off to end the simulation early, as in an emergency stop. We'll go over both of those features upcoming in this presentation. Now, underneath that button right there, you have 3 colored lights. Now, the red light is your battery indicator. When that red light is off, that means that your batteries are dead. If you have a solid red light, that means that the battery is fully charged, pretty much 40% or higher. If it is a flashing red light, that means that it is below 40% and you'll need to continue charging the baby. We will cover charging the baby in the next slide here. The green light is your charging indicator. The only time the green light turns on is when you plug the charger into the baby. When you plug the charger into the baby, green light turns on and it will stay on until you either unplug the charger from the baby or baby gets a full charge. Now, when you do plug the baby into the charger, you have got to see a solid green light. A solid green light is an indication that your batteries are charging. If you have a flashing green light, it could mean that the batteries are warming up, and that could take up to an hour for that green light to go solid. However, if that green light is still flashing after 1 hour, you need to contact product support because that is an indication that your batteries are not charging. The yellow light is a communication indicator. It will always flicker once every 15 to 20 seconds. That's normal. The only time that you ever see the yellow light go solid is when you are adding the baby to the control center, and it would only be on for a maximum about 2 to 3 minutes. So if the students are concerned about the baby and they've got it home and they say, I've got a flashing yellow light, don't worry about that. That's always going to happen. You'll always see a flashing yellow light about once every 15 to 20 seconds. There's also, so underneath that yellow light is the charging port, and that is where you plug the charger into the baby. And then underneath this diaper here is the battery compartment lock. It's under the diaper, and that's where you would use your instructor key to take off the battery cover. Again, just to recap with the lights, and even these, we even have videos on our product support website for the baby and the control center, and it will even go over a lot of what I'm going over today, even explains how to charge the baby and what do the lights mean. But remember, red light, that means that's your battery indicator right now. If it's off, you have dead batteries. You'll want to plug it in. Solid red, you've got a full charge, 40% or higher. Flashing red light means you're below 40%. You'll need to keep charging the baby. Green light only turns on when you plug the baby into the charger. Solid green means that your batteries are charging. Flashing green could mean that the batteries are warming up, but if it's still flashing after 1 hour, contact product support because that's an indication your batteries are not charging. And the yellow light is a communication indicator, and it will always flicker once every 15 to 20 seconds. Now, best practices for battery optimization and for charging. Now, what we recommend is that to charge the baby, a full charge takes 4 to 6 hours. Now, what we recommend is that you plug the baby into the charger the night before a simulation. Let the baby charge up all night long, and then unplug the baby in the morning or when the students come to pick up the babies. It is perfectly fine to leave the baby plugged in longer than 4 to 6 hours. It's not going to harm the battery if the baby is plugged in overnight. Now, the reason why we recommend that is I can't tell you how many times I've had instructors contact me. It's the day of the simulation. They're going to plug in the babies right when they get to school, and then they have students coming up to them with permission forms and questions and assignments, and coaches has this, parents have that, and they get so distracted that they forget to plug the babies in. Now it's time to program the babies. They don't have enough charge for the weekend. Plugging the baby into the charger the night before simulation, letting it charge up all night long, and unplugging it the morning of the simulation will ensure that you have a full charge. Now, on a full charge, the batteries on the RealCare 3 last roughly about 3 to 3.5 days. If you are running a simulation that is longer than that, so let's say you are running a simulation that's going to go a whole week, you will need to recharge the baby around day 3 so that it can finish the rest of the simulation. It is perfectly fine to have the baby plugged into the charger when it is running a simulation. If baby's asking for care, you'll need to unplug the baby from the charger in order to administer the care. But if you're in a situation where you have to send a charger home with a student, that's perfectly fine. It won't interfere with the operation of the simulation. Just remember, they'll need to unplug it if they have to give the care. Now, if you have a situation where baby is not going to be used for a very long time, for summer, for example, and you're going to be putting the baby into storage, any rechargeable battery product requires regular charging. So if baby is going to be put into storage and you're not going to touch it for a number of months, about once every 3 months, you need to take the baby out of storage, give it a charge, and then put it back into storage. Prolonged periods of time without a charge will damage a rechargeable battery to where it cannot hold the charge for or it could lose the ability to hold a charge. So if you have a situation where you're kind of like a year on and a year off, charge the baby before you put it into storage, and then once every 3 months, you got to take the baby out of storage, charge up the battery, and then put it back into storage. If you have problems with the babies that are not holding a charge, for example, you've got it plugged in. The moment you unplug it, all lights go off. That means your batteries did not charge. You'll want to contact product support immediately. There's a few things that we can do to check with your batteries, and there's a few things we can try to see if we can get them revived. Now, for storing the babies, what you want to do about so summertime comes around, it's time to put them into storage. What you want to do, just clean the clothing, wipe down the baby, put the baby in a plastic bag, and then put the optimal conditions is to keep them in a cool, dry place. So if you have the box or if you have some containers for the babies, perfect, put them in that, put them in the storage. If, however, you're in a situation where you have only like a shed that you can keep the babies and it's not an environment and it's not in a controlled environment, pardon me, what you want to do is, so let's say you have that situation, it's in a hot shed or it's been really cold outside. Once you get the baby out of storage, unbox them and then let them sit for 24 hours. Let the baby and the electronics adjust to the new temperature. Any kind of dramatic changes in temperature can cause water condensation inside the baby, which could do damage to the electronics. So if you have a situation where it's stuck in extreme temperatures and you're just taking it out for the first time, let the baby sit for about a good 24 hours to adjust to the temperature, and for the baby, the vinyl, the electronics, to adjust to the new temperature before charging it again. So once you get a baby out of storage, give it a full charge. You might want to run it a few times in a demonstration or maybe like a practice simulation just to make sure that batteries do not do a premature shutdown, and then give them another full charge by the time it's time to send up for a real simulation. One thing I will mention that once baby is unplugged from the charger, sitting there doing nothing, the batteries will go dead within 1 week. So if you were to charge the baby on a Monday and you're not going to send it out until Friday, and you unplug it on Monday, that baby will not have enough charge come Friday to run that simulation. So that's why it's always recommended to charge the baby the night before a simulation and unplug it the morning of the simulation. So after you've had a chance to plug the babies into the charger, what you'll want to do next is install the Control Center software. Now there are 2 locations and they're on these 2 links right here. The first one is actually that bottom one that you see on the screen here, which you would find on the Quick Start Guide, bottom of the first page of your Quick Start Guide. To install to your computer. This would be the most recent version of Control Center. Now, this version of Control Center that you would download, if you have a mix of RealCare 2 Plus and RealCare 3, this version of Control Center will work with both versions of Baby. Now, most instructors do need to have their computer techs install the Control Center. So if you try to install the Control Center and you're getting a message that's saying, letting you know that you cannot continue, you need an admin password, then you'll want to contact your computer techs, forward that link to them, and they will be able to do the install. Also, like this first link here, which would take you right to our RealCare Baby and Control Center product support webpage. On that page, you will also find, in addition to the Control Center software installs for both Windows and Mac, you'll find documents and little training tutorials that will help you with the operation of the program of the baby throughout your school year. So after you've had a chance to charge the babies and install the Control Center, what you want to do first is get the baby added to the Control Center, and I will be kind of switching back and forth between the screens here and going live. But first, after you've installed the Control Center, you've got to plug the X-Stick in first. Plug in the X-Stick, wait about a good 15 to 20 seconds, and then open the Control Center. Reason why we say you have to give it about 15 to 20 seconds after you plug in the X-Stick is because it allows your computer to recognize the X-Stick. So once it's plugged in, the computer's probably going to go, oh, what are you? And it's going to, oh, you're the X-Stick. And then open up the Control Center. If you open it up too early, you might not, it may not recognize, and you might have to unplug and replug it again. So after you've opened up the Control Center for the very first time, and let me switch over here to a new screen. I'm going to skip this tutorial right now for the sake of time, but if you've installed the control center for the very first time, go through these little screens right here so you can kind of get familiar with what to expect. Then you can click skip tutorial, or you can always click this where it says do not remind me for 120 days. So that way after 6 months, it can come back if you need a little refresher. So right now we're going to skip tutorial and we're going to go straight to adding the baby to the control center. So for the very first time that you open the control center, and I will also mention you may have to redo this about every new school year. It's not uncommon. I'll say the majority of instructors, when they come back from summer break, will find that their babies are missing because your computer techs might have wiped out the computer and database entirely and installed a fresh version. Babies may not be there, or depending upon what they did to the computer, there's a good chance any type of maintenance or update might have taken away communication from the babies. But pretty much once you have added the baby to the control center, you're not going to have to do that for probably that entire school year. So once the baby is added, it's going to be there. But don't be surprised come the following school year that you may have to re-add the babies. Now to do that, to get the babies added to the control center, just on the left side here, just above the blue baby that says all, it says add. So you want to click add, and that takes you to the add baby screen. Your instructions are right on the bottom here. I'm going to put on my camera and you should be able to see me. What you need is a paper clip. A paper clip is best. Some people have used the nose of the instructor key to try to push in that button. Sometimes of that, but this is not always the size isn't always uniform. So it might be a little short, may not get in there. So it's always best to use a paper clip to push in that button. So there's a button that's above the red light. What you need to do is stretch out your paper clip and press down and hold on that button for 2 chimes, then release. Don't press release, press release. You got to hold it in for 2 chimes, release after the second, yellow light will go solid, and then the baby will be added to the control center. If you accidentally hold that button in for 3 chimes, don't worry, just wait 5 seconds and then try it again. So we hold here, 1, 2, okay. Yellow light has gone solid, and then we wait for a little bit. If you look at the bottom right corner of the screen, our little communication device indicator was turning yellow for that. And now our baby has been added to the computer. This is baby 7B2C. That is the factory name that came with the baby. And when we go into programming the baby, I'll explain about how you can probably change that name if you ever needed to. So now the baby is added to the control center. And again, you're probably not going to have to redo this again unless until probably the next school year. Now, baby's on the control center, and I will mention our little baby here has only about a half charge. Now, I couldn't send this baby home because I don't have enough charge yet. So last night, I did accidentally forget to plug the baby into the charger. So now you have an idea of what would happen here if you didn't plug in the baby the night before a simulation. I do, however, have enough power in here to run a demonstration. Now that the baby is added, one thing I did forget to mention, before adding the baby to the control center, if you look at the bottom right corner, there's that icon of the wireless communication device. That device has to be green before you can do anything with the babies, whether it's adding them, programming them, do a demonstration, retrieve a report. That icon down there must be green. Green means computer recognizes the communication device, and you can start sending commands back and forth to the babies. Switching back over here to the PowerPoint real quick. Now that we've added the babies, if this is your first time, I recommend that you kind of do a demonstration to get used to the babies. And this is also a good thing to do when you're in class with the students. First, do individual care events, just so that you can practice one at a time how to ID the baby and how to administer the care. It's best to have that done in the class. First, do it yourself so that you can get familiar with how the baby functions and where to put the ID to the baby and how to administer the care and all that. And then you can have the students do individual care events as well, and then you can even do a sequence of events if you like. Just for the sake of time, we're only going to do one care event right here, but which I will show you where the different locations are on the baby and how to expect the baby to respond in the demo. Now, in a demonstration, the baby will respond to any ID that you put up to it, any ID at all. So in that demonstration, you can use any ID. So if you have one baby, you have 5 IDs, you can give the IDs to each student and pass that one baby around. But you got to make sure that the baby is unplugged from the charger. If the baby is still plugged into the charger, when you do a demonstration, the charging actually disables the antenna. It will not respond to the ID. Now, I'm going to switch over here back to the control center. All right, so now in order for us to do a demonstration, we have to select the baby. Now, if you notice, none of these buttons up here are highlighted. So in order for these buttons to be highlighted, you've got to click, you got to select your baby. And now we have demo. This is where we'll go to run our demonstrations. Program baby is where we go to program the baby for a simulation. Birth certificates, so after you've programmed the baby, you can print out a birth certificate for the student, which will have the student name, the baby name, the weight, and the date, all kind of cute stuff like that. That's an optional. You can always use that if you needed to, to give to the student. They sometimes like to have that. Get report will retrieve a report when the baby is like running a simulation, and I'll kind of go over that feature a little bit later. Stop will turn the simulation off. Maintenance will, that is where you can go and run a troubleshooting on the baby to check to see if the baby is, any of the functions are operating or not. Daycare, that is used when the baby is in a simulation, kind of like during the week, and the baby is brought back to you, and you need to be quiet so the students can continue on for the rest of the day. And then you could take it out of daycare, send the students home. And then there's the delete baby. Now the delete baby, you only want to use that when you physically no longer have a baby and you need to remove it from the control center. The delete baby does not stop a running simulation. So if you have a simulation that's running, you can't seem to stop it. In an upcoming slide, we'll go over the emergency stop, but do not use the delete to stop a baby. It does not work that way. The delete is only used to remove a baby from the control center. So going on to the demo, select your baby, go to demo, and then you have your different care events. You have the feed, the burp, the diaper, the rock. I'm gonna select feed here. Now, what we recommend, it defaults to 30 seconds, but set that to 60. Now, the highest you can go to is 255 seconds, which is roughly around 4.5 minutes. Now, the lowest you can go to is, I'm gonna go down here. The least amount of time you can run a demonstration for is 10 seconds, and that is nowhere near close enough to run an effective demo. So what we recommend is that you set the demonstration to no less than 60 seconds. So that way, 60 seconds is enough time for the baby and the student to get an idea of, okay, this is the care, this is how I give to it, and how to respond. Anything less than that, you could run the risk of timing the baby out, and then they don't even get a chance to complete the demonstration. Now on the baby, there are 4 locations that the ID will recognize. On the front of the baby, it's around the front right shoulder, or about 1 inch below the belly button. Or on the back of the baby, it's above the battery cover between the shoulder blades, or below the battery cover on the butt. Now, it does not matter which location they put that ID to. What you want to do is make sure that you get the ID 2 inches or closer. Don't wave it around, because if it's waving around, it's harder for that baby to lock into the signal. Once baby chimes for that ID, then you can give the care. If in doubt, and let's say students sometimes are kind of not figuring out where to put the ID, I always say use the default, put it below the cover on the butt. Well, that's where the diaper sensor is right there. They can feel that. Okay, I can put the ID there. Now, it can take upwards of about 10 seconds for that baby to recognize the ID. So just pretty much tell them you got to be patient. You'll hear the chime, and then you can give the care. So I've selected feed. Now I have to click start demo. Now, if you notice, if I don't select a care event, my only option is stop demo. So you've got to select your care event first. So I've select feed. It's also set to play once. So once this baby does the feeding event, it stops. Unless if I click continuous, I'll just keep doing a feeding event every 60s, every 20 seconds after a feeding event is over with until I click stop demo. So I'm gonna make sure we're at play once. I click start demo, the baby's gonna chime. Now that chime is telling me that the baby recognized the command from the computer. Now baby's starting to cry. Now I wanna put the ID to the baby. Okay, I've heard the chime and now I can give the care. Make sure that you've properly supported the head and the arm. And then put the bottle to the lips. And he will make a suckling sound to indicate he is being fed. Now, you have to give the baby movement during a feeding because the baby is motion sensitive, which means that if they leave the baby in the car seat and prop the bottle, or they don't move the baby when they're feeding, the baby, if it does not sense movement, it will not feed. So when they are feeding the baby, it has got to be in their arms and they have got to give the baby movement. And then we wait for a coo, and the coo will signify that the care event is over with. There. So the coo signifies that the feeding event is over with, and I am free to do another care event. Now for the care events, the feedings, the diaper changes, and the rockings, they end with a coo to signify that care event is over with. For a burping, it makes a soft little burp. Now during the burpings and the rockings, baby makes a constant little grunting sound to tell you you're not done. So they just got to keep moving the baby until they've heard the burp or they've heard the coo. If they're in a noisy environment, sometimes that coo and that burp can be hard to hear, especially the burp. So mainly if they're not hearing that little grunting sound, that means that their care event is over with. Now, in a regular simulation, your care events, feedings, burpings, rockings, it doesn't matter if it's an easy, medium, or hard schedule, any of your care events can go anywhere from a couple of minutes to an excess of 30 plus minutes. So it is not uncommon for a baby to have fed for over a half hour. It is not uncommon for a baby to have been rocked for over 40 minutes. And you can have back-to-back care events. So, and it is not uncommon to have a 20-minute burping followed by a 40-minute rocking. So, and I will go over kind of the programming of the baby and the different schedules in an upcoming slide. So moving on, going back to the slide presentation. Oh, and once since it was on a play once, it will just stop itself. Now you can do a preset 1. I do recommend that if it's your first time. I like the preset 1 because you know what's coming up. It's going to go coo, to feed, to burp, to diaper, to cough, to rock. Once it finishes with rock, it stops. So you know the sequence of the order. Each care event is 60 seconds, 30-second break in between. And you can always stop your demo early by clicking stop demo. Now, if you're doing a demo with a number of babies, what we recommend is that just to minimize the confusion, especially if this is their first time using the babies, is to get them in groups of like 5 babies or less. Anything more than that, and it gets really noisy and it gets really confusing. And then spread the babies throughout the room, because if they're all kind of converged together, it's going to be hard to tell, okay, was that my chime for my baby, or was that the person that was right next to me, or which ID was recognized? So if they're spread out throughout the room and they're not as close to each other, it's easier for the student to identify, okay, this baby chimed for this ID and I can give the care for it. So anybody 5 or less is ideal, and then spread them out throughout the room. If it's more than that, more babies than that, just keep in mind that's a lot of noise and that could be kind of a lot of confusion. So what you really want to do is just make things easier for you and minimize the confusion. It's usually best if you do it with fewer babies. So after you've had a chance to run your demonstrations, you want to program the baby for a simulation. Now to do that, I'm going to go back to the Control Center software. Go to your All Baby screen. You can even go to the Available Baby screen and make sure, again, that your baby is selected, and make sure there's a green communication indicator in the COMM column. That means that the baby is talking to the Control Center, and make sure that icon at the bottom right corner is also green. Click onto your Program Baby, and that takes you to the Program Baby screen. Now, first thing is class. Now, there's a default folder that says no class, so that if you accidentally didn't assign a class or something happened where you had to switch over to another computer and you had to re-add the babies, you will be able to get that simulation back, and it will filter into the no class folder. Now, you can create as many report folders as you want. So we'll create a new one here, new class, enter the name for a folder. So you can call it whatever you like, fall 2020, period 4, parent development, whatever you like. We'll call this one period 3, actually. Oop. So what happens here, when that simulation is over with, that report will filter into the control center, into that class period. So right now we see period 3, it's on the right-hand side, sorry, left-hand side underneath no class, it has a 0 in it, and it will remain 0 until a report has been retrieved. Next, we would put in the student name. This is optional. You can put in the student name if you like, you don't have to, but we'll put one in here. Jessica Smith, for example. And now you have ID1 and ID2. These babies are not pre-programmed with an ID. This is the one time that you will assign the ID when you are running a simulation, when you program the baby for the simulation. Once you've programmed that ID, keep that ID in that baby again, and you won't have to do this step again. What we see here is a dummy ID. This baby has been used in simulations and presentations before, so that's why we see one right there. But if it's the very first time, that'll be blank, and you'll have to put an ID in there before you can continue with the programming. So click the little pencil, and then here, look at the 5-digit number that you have on the ID. Now it uses the numbers 0 through 9 and the letters A through F. So if you see a 0, it's the number 0 and not the letter O. And when you put in the number, don't worry about caps, because once you click OK, everything will go to caps. So on my ID, I have 6B1C1. So if you notice, I put it all in lowercase, but once I click OK, it now has gone to capital letters. Now remember, this ID has to go home with that baby, because if the student gets the wrong ID, they will not be able to care for that baby. So make sure that this ID and that baby stays together and goes home with the student. Now there is an ID2 option right here. Babies only come with one ID, but if you purchase additional IDs, you have the option of programming in a second ID, like a babysitter ID, for example, or if you're putting students together in a couple. This way, both of them can care for the baby, and it will record, the number of times this ID was recognized and number of times this ID was recognized. So this is completely optional. You do not need to assign that. Now for baby, this is like the name that the student wants to give the baby for the simulation. Most don't even do that, but if you do, you could call that, you could put one in there, and you could call this one Heather. And so after the end of the simulation, this will go blank. Now the baby ID, that is the permanent name for the baby. Now you can keep the factory name that it came with, or you can change it to whatever makes it easier for you to keep track of. It doesn't matter what you put in there, but really the main thing is what should be in baby ID should be whatever is easiest for you to keep track of the baby. If this is the first baby on the list, maybe you want to call it baby 1. Let's say it's the only Hispanic female baby that you have. You could call it baby H, you call it HF for Hispanic female. It doesn't matter. The main thing is put in here what is easiest for you to keep track of the baby. So if you ever needed to edit the baby ID, just click that little pencil, put in the baby ID that you want to call it permanently, click OK, and then once we finalize the programming, that baby will have a new ID. Babies do not come pre-assigned with a gender. You would do that at the time of programming. So this baby, again, has been used in demonstrations before, so that's why we do have a gender in there. And then you need to set the starting day and starting hour, and the stopping day and the stopping hour. Now, babies do not have an internal clock. They have no clue what time it is. The control center looks to see what the date and time is in your computer. And it sees, oh, it's like right now it's looking at my computer and it's saying, oh, it is 12:11 p.m. on August 6th. Whatever is in your computer is going to be relayed into the baby. So you want to make sure that sometimes in startup of new school years, or like when we have daylight savings time, when we drop back an hour or go forward, some could be, very few times do I see it, but every now and then, once a year, I come across one or two people whose clocks did not adjust. So as long as the clock in your computer is accurate, that time will be relayed into the baby. So let's say we want baby to start tomorrow, Friday, and let's say we want to put it at 4 p.m. It has to be at the top of the hour or within the hour. Like right now, if I wanted a baby to start right now, I'd set it for today at noon. But you can't set it to like start at 4:30 or 5:15. It's got to be at the top of the hour. And then you set your stopping day. How do I put it for Monday? And stopping hour. And we'll call that 6 a.m. So watch this little box right here, because it will tell you how long it'll be before the simulation starts. And then it will tell you how long the simulation will last. And next you have the schedule order. Babies, actually I will jump to a screen here, because this is actually in your curriculum, and on our website, you will find the care schedule table. The care schedule table, let me bring this up here. The babies are pre-programmed with 15 different care schedules. Back in 1999, when the RealCare Baby was being developed, we had 15 mothers record everything that their real child had done in a 24-hour period. And we took those diaries and we programmed them into the babies. So somewhere on this planet, there are 15 20-year-olds whose behaviors as an infant are programmed into these babies. Now, this chart here doesn't show you what the baby needs, when it needs it, or for how long, but the more color you see within a specific hour will give you an idea of how much time will be spent. It's not going to tell you when it needs it, what it is, or for how long. So for example, schedule number 5 here, if you look at the 11 a.m. hour, that is almost completely full. So that just tells you, okay, I can just expect that this hour here, that student will be spent pretty much caring for the baby. Now, what's handy with this is you'll be able to see, kind of get an idea of how active the student, how the schedule will be. Now, you can also decide what schedule you want the baby to run each day. So if you have a very special needs student who really wants to take the program, but they're high anxiety, or maybe they're autistic, maybe you want to give them all schedule number 11 and schedule number 12. Those are the easiest. Or if you have a more at-risk student who is actively trying to get pregnant, maybe you want to give them the hardest of all the schedules, was your schedule number 5. Print this document so you have it on your hand. So when you go to program the baby, I'll go back to the control center here. You have the different care schedules that you'll see is going to run each day. So right now, how this is set up, it's going to run schedule number 9. So baby's going to start on Friday. It's going to run schedule number 9. And at 6 a.m. the next morning, it's going to switch over to schedule number 11. Now, then on Sunday at 6 a.m., it's going to switch over to schedule number 12. And then on Monday morning at 6 a.m., it would have, if let's say I had to stop time at 8 a.m., it would roll over to schedule number 13 for just those 2 hours. So it always assigns 5 regardless of how long a simulation runs. You're probably not going to get to all 5 of those days, unless if you're running a 7-day simulation where it would go all set, run the 5 and then repeat schedules day 1 and day 2. Now, what you could do is like, you know what, I want to give everybody, say, you know, I'm starting off new and I just kind of want to even playing field for everybody. You could probably give them all, let's say you just want to do schedule number 9 for all of them. Or maybe he's like, you know what, I want them all to be a easy mix, but I don't want everyone to have the same one, but I want it to be easy. So if you click easy mix, it takes the 5 easy schedules and it shuffles them up. You can do that with medium, hard, random, but for this case, we're just going to do the easy mix. Click OK. and then the quiet times. Now this is optional. The quiet times are completely optional. They're at your discretion. You do not have to do this. But if you have a situation where something warrants a quiet time, you can program one. So let's say there is a wedding going on Saturday, and you obviously probably don't want the baby going off during that time. So you can program a quiet time. So let's say the wedding begins on Saturday at 1 p.m. Probably want the baby to be quiet at noon. So put that for noon. And let's say it's like, okay, I want baby to be quiet for 5 hours. Now you have only 3 quiet times. You don't have to use them, but you only have 3, and each one is a maximum of 12 hours. So make sure you've got the correct day, starting hour, and the duration, and make sure that number is confirmed right here in the total hours of quiet time. Now in a quiet time, the baby is not going to ask for any care, but it will cry if it's mishandled. So if the students were to do a head support or rough handling, wrong position, shaken baby, it will cry for that. So just because baby's in a quiet time does not absolve them from being responsible with the baby. So now that you've had your starting day, hour, schedule order, quiet times, if any, now, another thing, make sure the baby is in the room with you, because the communication range between the baby and the control center is only 20 feet. So you've got to program the babies when they're in the room with you. You can't send the baby home and then try to program them. They've got to be in the room with you in order to receive that programming. So we click done, and we get a little warning here that says you need to press send to baby to send your program instructions to your baby. That's there to remind you, if I don't click send to baby, baby doesn't get programmed. So click I got it, click send to baby. Now this is alerting me that the baby is below 50% and I would need to recharge. Now I wouldn't have enough charge on this baby to run a weekend. I probably would get 1 night with it. So if I was only doing a single night simulation, I probably have enough charge for that here. So I click OK, baby's gonna chime. Now watch where it says pending. Okay, I heard it chime. Now pay attention to it under status where it says pending. Do not let the student leave the room until it has changed from the status of pending to either ready or active. Baby now shows a status of ready. It means that it's programmed. Now they can walk out of the room. Once baby shows ready, they no longer need the control center anymore. You're free to close the control center and unplug the X stick, and baby is going to run just fine. Because once baby is out of that 20-foot range, this little green indicator right here will turn red. That's normal. That just means it's out of range. But the baby, as long as it has a status of ready before it leaves the classroom, it is programmed. So now I have a green baby here that says active, and it shows my baby. It shows ready right now because the simulation has not started. So after the simulation is over with and the baby comes into range, it's going to automatically send its report into the control center. So when you come in to get the report, plug in the X stick, open the control center, and as babies start coming in, plug the babies into the charger, because the charging actually helps with the reception and will help retrieve the data faster. So plug the babies into the charger, and they should start automatically filtering their reports into the control center, or you can do that by clicking stop. Baby's going to chime. It has a status of report due, which means it's sending a report into the control center. And in a moment, once it says either report okay or available, you know you have a report. So we have to wait here. It can take sometimes up to a minute or two to retrieve a report. If you haven't received a report after 2 minutes, make sure baby's unplugged. You probably have to close the control center, reopen it. But if you haven't gotten a report after 2 minutes, you probably want to contact product support. So now we have a report here, period 3. There it is. There's my student. I can select that. And here I can view the report, and I can see how the student performed over the weekend. I can also print that report from here. You can even print it from here as well, and you can delete it. We have no information on here. This was a dummy simulation. It never even activated. But once you've retrieved the data from the baby and it has now gone to a status of available, you are free to now program it again. Again, remember, make sure green communication indicator in the COMM column and also at the bottom right, so that way you know the baby's communicating. You can get a report and you can reprogram it again. Now the big one right here, a few things. we'll mention as abuse demonstration, the 4 early shutdown indicators. Now you'll see this on a report as well. So if you see on the report, head support failure, that means the head went back. Students might have accidentally picked up the baby too quickly, whammo, head goes back. Or a very common mistake when students are feeding the baby, they could be accidentally pushing the bottle against the lips. If they're doing that when they're feeding the baby, they could accidentally push that head back far enough to where it hits the head support. Now, a shaken baby, that occurs when the head goes forward and backwards 3 full times in 2 seconds, forward, backward, forward, backward, forward, backward. That one's kind of a difficult one to accidentally trigger, but I have seen instances where the baby's in the car seat, but it's not strapped in. Students have to slam on the brake and baby comes tumbling out into the car and bounces around a few times. You could accidentally get a shaken baby that way. A wrong position is when the baby is face down or upside down. So face down or upside down for too long a period of time. Now, a way that a student could accidentally trigger an accidental wrong position is if they're lying down. Let's say it's in the middle of the night and they're doing a burping on the baby and they're on their bed and they're lying down and they're burping the baby, or they're in a recliner and they're too far back. When that care event is over with, if they do not get themselves in an upright position, baby is going to sense that it's face down and it will start to cry and fuss until they get in an upright position. Now, a rough handling is it's a blow to the body, kicking, dropping, hitting it. Ways that students could accidentally trigger a rough handling event is if they're burping the baby too hard, especially on the rear, they could accidentally trigger a rough handle event. So when they're burping the baby, it's just a gentle patting between the shoulder blades. If they're patting right here, this is where your rough handling sensor is. If they're burping too hard right here, they could accidentally trigger a rough handling event. So when they burp the baby, it doesn't matter how long that burping event is going to last. Burping the baby faster will not end it faster. So if it's a 20-minute burp, you just got a gentle pat for 20 minutes, wait until you hear the burp sound, and then you'll be free to wait for the next care event. And remember, it's a blow to the body, so if they're burping the baby too hard right in here, they could accidentally trigger a rough handle event. Now, there are 4 shutdown modes that the baby could go into to end a simulation early. One of which is the emergency shutdown. So that button that's on the back of the baby, I had mentioned before, it has 2 purposes. That's to add the baby to the control center, and it's also can be used to turn the baby off early. Now, to do an emergency shutdown, you do need to have a paper clip. And then that button that's above the red light, that button has to be held down for 6 continuous chimes. Remember that, 6 continuous chimes. You've got to release after the 6th chime, baby coos, and then it turns off. And you'll see emergency shutdown on the report. Now, if you release at the 5th chime or the 7th chime, you got to do it all over again. And just holding the button in without removing it will not put it into an emergency shutdown. You have 6 chimes, release. Now, if you did not give authorization to do an emergency shutdown and you see emergency shutdown on the report and the student says, I didn't do that, yeah, they did. There is one way and one way only. And emergency shutdown is a manual shutdown. Then there's the battery shutdown. The battery ran out of power too soon. Battery level dipped too low. Baby shut off. And the baby will record up to the point of where the battery had shut down. Now, if you have like one battery shutdown is the first time you're sending out the baby this year, not uncommon. What you want to do is sometimes the battery just didn't get enough strength yet. Charge it up for another simulation, send it out. If you get back-to-back battery shutdowns, time to contact product support. Now, a neglect shutdown occurs if the baby has been ignored for 12 continuous hours. That's not 12 continuous care events, it's 12 continuous hours, which means in a 12-hour period, if the baby does not respond to the ID, it will go into a neglect shutdown and just turn itself off. So if the student accidentally had the wrong ID, they can't care for the baby. They're not going to have a baby screaming all weekend for them. It'll just shut off in 12 hours. Or if you don't want to instruct them how to do the emergency shutdown and you feel, okay, you know what, put the baby in a blanket, put it in a closet, and just let it be. I'll give you points up to the time where baby went into the closet, and it will just shut off within 12 hours. The The fourth one is the abuse shutdown, and that occurs if the baby has been abused 24 times. And that's only your head supports, your shaken baby, and your rough handling. So a combination of all three or 24 of all of those events or one of those events will put the baby into an abuse shutdown. So it doesn't matter if the simulation is running for 5 minutes for a week. 24 times it's abused, it'll turn itself off. Now next, after you've had a report, after you've had a chance to get a report, what's pretty important is to kind of interpret what went on here, because what you have here is more than just the score. So, and it doesn't matter if it's a straight A student or the most responsible student you've ever known. Anybody can have a bad night. Anybody can have a, just have some accidents during the simulation. What you really want to do is break up the score first. So like here, we have a performance overview of 76%. Now in most grading scales, what is that? That's roughly about a middle C or something. So first, look at the left-hand side. That's your proper care percentage. This will give you an idea of how well the students cared for the baby. So we have ROC, and it shows 15 out of 15, 100%. So baby requested 15 care events. Student properly responded to all 15 of those. There were 25 requested diaper events. The student properly responded to 24 of them. So basic math, that's 96%. Burp, 26 requested burping events. Baby responded to 25 of those. We have a 96% again. Feeding, there were 37 requested feeding events. Student properly responded to 33 of those. So 89% just on the proper care performance of feeding alone. So overall, there were 103 requested care events. Student properly responded to 97 of those. Basic math, and that's 94%. So you have a spot on student right here. They did great with the care. Now also pay attention underneath it. It says ID1 was used 109 times. It's very important to look at that number, because what we see here is when the baby cries for care, actually when the baby cries, the baby's going to respond to the ID, whether it's crying for a care event, a fussy event, and fussy events do not show up on your reports, or a mishandle event. So right here, we have 109 times that the ID was recognized, but baby only requested 103 care events. We have a surplus of 6 IDs. That surplus of IDs came from either from fussy events or mishandle events. So what I see here is that, one, our ID is functioning. So if you have a student who's telling you that the ID wasn't functioning, count the number of times the ID was recognized, compare that to the total number of requested care events. If it's equal to or greater than the total number of requested care events, the ID is just fine. So here, I know our ID is working, and I also know I have an attentive student because baby's crying for something and they're responding. They're responding to that care event. So I know, okay, we're Johnny on the spot right here. Baby's asking for something. So anytime the baby was crying, they were attentive to the baby. So now look at the right-hand side, because this side takes points off of the left. Baby defaults to 15 points off for every shaken baby, 3 points off for every head support, wrong position, and rough handling. So there were 5 head support events for minus 15. And there was 1 wrong position for minus 3. So we have a total of 18 points off taken off of the left-hand side. So that's how we got our 76%. Okay, so now we want to look at how the student had done over the weekend. And this is really at your discretion as to how you want to really grade this. So you can decide how best to score this for the student. So look at the performance overview box, underneath the performance overview box. First thing, it tells us when it started. And then at 5 o'clock, we had a head support. At 7:39, we had a head support. Well, who knows? Maybe they were responding to maybe it was in a fussy event and they were responding to that and they accidentally let the head go back. Or, this is night 1 and they're probably not used to handling the baby, or maybe they handed it to a friend or something. And during that time, the head went back. And then we had at 9:45 a missed feeding and a 9:45 head support event. If baby is mishandled during a care event, that mishandle event is going to negate the care event. So they get a double dip here. So what I see here, baby was crying for a feeding event. Student accidentally let the head go back when they attempted to feed the baby. That feeding event was missed because of the head support. If that head didn't go back, we wouldn't have had a missed feeding event. And then At 3:13 in the morning, we had a missed diaper, and at 3:19 in the morning, we have a missed feeding. Now, when the baby cries for care, the students have 2 minutes in which to get their ID to the baby. Then they have an additional 2 minutes to figure out what the baby needs. If they're late in any of those 2-minute windows they have, it's recorded as missed. Well, we know that the student properly, the ID was recognized more times than there were care events. So it really tells me that they were late. So if they're late getting the ID to the baby, they'll still be able to care for it, but it'll be marked as missed. Now, I am never surprised of any missed care events between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., maybe midnight, maybe 6 a.m. But really, if you have a student who's a heavy sleeper, that student could have been sleeping for a whole 3 minutes before they realize baby's crying for care, and they, finally get up and try to get the care event. So what I see here is, who knows, student probably took longer than 2 minutes to wake up, probably took longer than 2 minutes to figure out, okay, baby needed the diaper change, and then once they figured it out, it's longer than the 2 minutes. Misfeeding, it's 3:19 in the morning. Maybe they, didn't put the bottle where they thought it was, and they're kind of fumbling around the room trying to find it. And then at 2:19, we have a wrong position. Okay, baby was face down. Who knows? Maybe they were in a recliner, and they were leaning back too far, and they didn't get up right before the baby sensed it. 3:48, missed feeding. 3:49, head support event. Double dip right there. Head support canceled that care event. 4:18, missed feeding. 4:19, head support event. So they went to care for the baby, head went back, that canceled the care event. At 5:54 p.m., missed burp. Took them longer than the 2 minutes to get to the baby, or 2 minutes before they could figure out what the baby needed. Maybe they were in the car and they couldn't pull over in time, to get to the baby within the 2-minute time frame. Or maybe they were in the bathroom or in another room and they couldn't hear the baby and couldn't get to the baby in time. We know they cared for it because of the number of times the ID was recognized, but it's beyond that 2-minute time frame. So in a sense, they were just really late. So at this point, it's really at your discretion as to how to look at the score. But I see a very attentive student who just wasn't as careful with the head as what we thought. But if you noticed on here, all of our missed feeding events, we have really coincide with the head support. And I'm not seeing any matching head support events with any of the other missed care events. So that tells me that the student that's probably a good indication that the student was accidentally pushing the bottle against the lips when they were caring for the baby, when all they have to do is really just rest the bottle against the lips. Now there's a second page to the report. Now the second page of the report will give you the ambient temperature report, the articles of clothing the baby was wearing at any given time, and also the length of time that it was in the car seat. Now, the baby is not going to cry or deduct points if it's too hot or too cold. Baby's not going to cry or deduct points if it's not wearing clothing. Baby is not going to cry or deduct points if it's in the car seat too long. You, as the instructor, are going to set the expectation as to how long baby should be in the car seat and how often you feel that baby should have its clothes changed. So, for example, you've got that ducky sleeper, and you could say, I expect to see the ducky sleeper at night. It's summertime right now. If the temperature is really hot out, you will be able to, maybe that onesie, or maybe just the diaper is more appropriate for that weather. But, if it's wintertime and it's really cold out, maybe wearing that one-piece suit or that or no clothing at all is definitely not appropriate for that type of a temperature. So you would use this as a guide as to determine, again, you set the expectation, and then you can grade accordingly. So like on here with the car seat carrier, I've noticed that if on the report here, it shows me that baby was in the car seat for most of the simulation. For example, day 2, we have 20 hours that the baby was in the car seat in a 24-hour period. I see all these little gaps in here. So that's telling me that the student is only taking the baby out of the car seat when the baby is needing care. Other students have figured out, okay, if I keep the baby in the car seat and baby needs care, I ID it, and it's a burping, I just pump the car seat with my foot, or the rocking and the feeding. So if it's a feeding event and they know they have to give baby movement, they'll prop the bottle up and they'll pump the car seat with their foot. But in something like this where I'm seeing all these gaps, that's just telling me that they're only taking the baby out when it needs care. Now for some common operating questions with the baby, how long will the baby cry? Well, that's a couple different scenarios. If they mishandle the baby, it's 1 minute, as long as they don't mishandle it again. So if they let that head go back, it's going to be 1 minute of crying time as long as they don't let it go back, mishandle it again. Now, if it's a fussy event, it's going to be 3 minutes. So if baby's in a fussy, it's going to take their ID, but it's just going to cry for 3 minutes and there's nothing they can do about it. Now, let's say that it's a care event that they cannot complete. So give you a scenario, they were at a friend's house and they accidentally left the bottle at their friend's home. Now they've gotten home, their friend is like about a good 15 minutes away. Baby now needs a feeding. And they don't have the bottle with them because it's over at their friend's house. Because they cannot complete that care event, that baby's going to cry for 6 minutes. And then after the 6 minutes, it'll stop crying and then resume for continue the simulation. So for a mishandle event, 1 minute, as long as I don't do it again. Fussy events are 3 minutes. And then for a care event they cannot complete because they misplaced the diaper, they misplaced the bottle, that's 6 minutes per care event they cannot complete. Baby makes strange sounds. That's not uncommon. I've heard that going all the way back to even our earliest models. It's not uncommon for baby to make some strange noises, especially if they're in the presence of a cell phone. That's just feedback sounds. So if it's a little squelching, buzzing, crackling, static sound, warbling noises, that's not uncommon. That's not a malfunction of the baby. Unless it's a constant noise that never ever goes away, then you're going to want to contact product support. But if it's an occasional sound, yeah, that's not uncommon. That certainly will happen. Now, it is perfectly fine to use a cell phone or other electronic device in the presence of the baby. Perfectly fine. Just don't be surprised if you get a strange noise out of it. Communication problems. With that one, let's say babies are not responding to commands. You can't get commands to clear. Computer's not recognizing the communication device. Pretty much if you have a communication situation where the babies aren't communicating, you can't seem to get the babies to talk back and forth. If it's been longer than 2 minutes, you got to contact product support, because if it's not resolved within 2 minutes, it's not going to be resolved in 3 or 5. You're going to want to contact us to help you resolve the problems, because you could be having maybe babies need to be re-added. Maybe we're dealing with some type of Wi-Fi interference. Maybe we're dealing with some type of third-party software that could be causing communication problems. But really, if you can't get babies to communicate or get a report or something within 2 minutes, contact product support. Do you need the control center on at all times? Only when you want to program the babies. Again, your communication range is only 20 feet. Once the babies are programmed with the control center, they don't need it anymore. You're free to close the control center and get it. And then when the babies come back, that's when you're going to want the control center to be back on. Any latex in the babies? No latex in the baby, no latex in the accessories, bottle, IDs, things like that. None at all. Will the baby affect pacemakers, insulin pumps, other medicinal devices? No, they are FCC approved to not interfere with medicinal devices like a pacemaker. Now, if you are concerned, always default to the doctor. One question a doctor might have is there a magnet? Well, yes, there is a little magnet in the speaker and there's a little magnet in the bottle. It's a very low gauze magnet, so it's not a strong magnet. But if the doctor says, nope, no magnets whatsoever, well, you might want to consider an alternative project. So will they affect pacemakers? No, they do not, but always defer to the doctor. So cleaning suggestions. We actually have a new cleaning suggestion document on our website. So with concerns of disinfecting the babies, we have the new document on our website. But for disinfecting the baby, you want to get a disinfectant wipe that has a minimum 60% alcohol content to it, because anything that's 60% or higher acts as an antimicrobial. And what you want to do is wipe that baby down with that disinfectant wipe. Well, first remove the clothing, wash the clothing, wipe the baby down from head to foot with that disinfectant wipe, and then let it air dry. Roughly, you probably want to be safe with it in about a half hour. But with a disinfectant wipe that has an alcohol content of 60% or higher, acts as an antimicrobial and kills 99.99% of all germs, including COVID. So wipe the baby down with a disinfectant wipe, air dry it, and for the clothing, cool, gentle cycle, line dry is best, or tumble dry low or air fluff. And again, these are also available on our website. Sensitive head concerns, if you have a baby that you feel that the head is too sensitive and it's easily triggering head supports, there is a sensitivity test. We have a video on our website that shows you how to test the baby's head, or you can always contact product support and we can walk you through it to verify, yep, you've got a problem, we need to send it in for repair. Or it's like, nope, it's in with specifications, the student might have been picking up the baby a bit too hard. So that video is on our website for you to follow, or you can always contact product support and we'd be happy to step through you on how to test that baby. Now, there are multiple ways to access product support if needed. Always, you can go to the website for our knowledge base, the RealCare and Control Center website. We have lots of video tutorials and documentation. Your operating handbook for the Control Center is also on there as well. We have the brand new chat feature, so if you're not able to call us, you can always use the chat feature. Go to our website and click on the little chat icon at the bottom right corner. You can get connected to product support. If you are connected to product support, you're going to want to be at the computer that has the Control Center, have the babies, have them plugged into the charger, along with the instructor key and the accessories. And there's a number of things we can assist you over the phone. You can send your questions to productsupport@realityworks.com. And if you have questions, please be specific and let us know what that problem is. For example, if you're having battery problems, just say, I lose all power when I unplug the baby. No matter how long I charge it, it's not charging beyond half. The babies are going into regular battery shutdowns. The more detail you can give us, the better of an answer we can give you. Or you can always contact us at 800-830-1416, option 2. And again, you'll want to be at your computer. Baby will need to be plugged into the charger, have the instructor key and your accessories, and there's a number of things that we can assist you over the phone. I will open this up to questions. We have a few already. One question on here is, can I have this training emailed to me? I believe anyone who is in this will be receiving a copy of today's presentation, but this will also be available on the website for in the archive, so you can come back to this as often as you can. And also, a lot of what I have covered are on a lot of little mini video tutorials on our website too. Let's see. Danger of recharging the baby too frequently, overcharging. You don't want to leave the baby plugged. It's really, it says no longer than a month. Really, you probably don't want to keep the baby plugged in longer than a couple weeks. So if you're not going to use the baby for a number of weeks, you probably don't want to leave it plugged in for longer than 2 weeks. Just unplug it. Let's see. When an event is missed by late response, does the baby stop crying for care? Only after 6 minutes. So if they completely ignore the care event and they don't touch it, they don't do anything, it will just be 6 minutes for that crying event, and then it just stops. But it continues the simulation, and then until the next care event. Another question was, how long does a charge last? On a full charge, so let's say you're sending the baby out on a Friday. You've charged it up Thursday, you've unplugged it Friday morning, and it shows a full charge. A full charge on a RealCare 3 in a simulation is going to last about 3 to 3.5 days. Which roughly you'll get a whole weekend with that. That's pretty good. If you're running a simulation for longer than that, let's say you're doing like a 7-day week simulation, you're going to want to charge that baby around day 3. Now, unplugging the baby, sitting there doing nothing, your batteries will go dead in a week. So let's say winter break comes around, you've charged up the baby, you've unplugged it, you're gone for what, 10, 14 days? When you come back to school after that winter break, that battery is dead. So that's just because it's sitting there doing nothing, battery will go dead, and you'll want to charge it back up before you're sending it in for a simulation. I inherited the baby cart and babies. What is the best way to go through and see which babies are working? First of all, you'll get the software added to the control center. Get the control center added to your computer, add the babies. Now, to do a troubleshooting test, and there's a troubleshooting video on our website and document as well that can step through it. Get them charged. To run a demonstration or a troubleshooting, an hour is more that you need. Charge them up for an hour, unplug them, run a troubleshooting, or run a demonstration. So if you notice that the baby is not responding to the bottle, anything, if it's not responding to a bottle, that's an automatic repair. You're going to want to contact product support. We'll have to see what the warranty is on the baby, if they qualify for a repair. Anything else that's not functioning, there's a little trick we can try with you. Let us know what feature isn't functioning, and we can say, okay, try this, and if that doesn't work, okay, we might have to set up a repair. So if you've inherited the babies, get them charged up, add the control center to the computer, get the babies added. To run a demo or a troubleshooting, and hour is more than enough to do that. Run the troubleshooting, run the demonstration. Any failures of any kind, you might want to contact product support, and we can let you know what you might want to try next to get the babies up and running. And it turns out rechargeable battery is ruined. Is it possible to replace the battery? The batteries and the batteries fall under the repair warranty for the babies. So if your baby is within the 5-year period and batteries need to be replaced, contact product support, because we cannot replace batteries beyond 5 years past the purchase date. So if you have a baby that has battery problems, contact product support, because we'll have to deem how old the battery is. There's a few things we can do to try to revive the batteries. If the batteries are within the warranty period and we cannot get them revived, we can get them replaced, but you cannot purchase replacement batteries anymore. And if you do have additional questions, you can always send an email to productsupport@realityworks.com, or you can contact us on the chat. Is it possible to get a newer version of the control center? Yes, and they're always for free right from our website. You no longer need the installation disc. If you have an installation disc, throw it away. You no longer need it. The links that are on this presentation, you can use those to go to our website, download a free version. Otherwise, you can always send an email to productsupport@realityworks.com and say, hey, can I get the link for the control center software? And we'll be happy to reply with a link for you. So I want to thank you all very much for this presentation. I think I have time for one more question here. I have babies, clothes, bottles, diapers. However, I did not receive the stick, IDs, or wristbands from the previous teacher. You will want to contact account services for those items. Now, if it was from a previous teacher, and let's say they have the blue communication pod, you don't need to buy an X stick. But if you do not have any communication device, you do not have that blue pod, you do not have the X stick, contact account services and let them know what accessories you do need, and they will be able to provide you with prices and get you the items that you need to continue running. Want to thank you all, and if you still have questions, again, send your question to productsupport@realityworks.com, or if you go to our website and you want to do a chat, just click on the chat feature at the bottom right corner, get connected to product support, or give us a call, 800-830-1416, option 2, and we'll be happy to assist. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Best of luck to everybody in the fall, and thank you again. You have a great day.